Ridiculous Crime is a production of iHeartRadio.
Hey, Zaron, you know what's ridiculous?
Yeah, I do, Elizabeth. The fact that chicken comes genetically from dinosaurs, which makes me wonder, did dinosaurs taste like chicken?
Mm-hmm. It's like those dino nuggets.
Yeah, exactly. Like Fred Flintstone foods.
Oh, exactly. That is totally ridiculous. Another thing that's ridiculous, booze cruises.
Yeah, they are.
Booze cruises in general, but especially ones that are actually a cover for mass kidnapping.
Ooh, I like this.
Yeah.
Mass kidnapping and alcohol on a boat.
Booze cruise kidnapping. This is Ridiculous Crime, a podcast about absurd and outrageous capers, heists, and cons. It is always 99% murder-free and 100% ridiculous. I feel like booze cruises are generally a recipe for disaster.
I would have to agree, having been the disaster.
But there's one booze cruise in history that is by far the worst and most ridiculous of all time.
Lay it on me.
Okay, you need to understand that in 1848, gold was found in the California foothills.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I bet you have. For those of us from the Golden State, we learned about that in fourth grade.
Yeah, we did.
Learned about that, the Donner Party, the missions. It was major fourth grade.
Did you have to make a mission out of sugar cubes?
No.
Oh, yeah. We had to do a mission out of sugar cubes.
Sugar cubes.
Yeah, you had to pick a mission, one of the missions in California.
Right.
And then you had to look at the actual architecture of it and then build your replica with sugar cubes. And you could always tell which parents built the models.
Which one? What do you remember? Which mission you selected?
Yeah, I got Mission Carmel.
That's a beautiful one.
I loved it. No, I picked it.
That's beautiful. Santa Barbara's beautiful.
Uh-huh.
I would have
Sonoma's nice. I like Sonoma.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're horrible places when you think about them in context, but the architecture, beautiful.
Totally. They're hellacious centers of genocide. Yeah. However...
But the roofing.
God, that's a beautiful building.
Those doors. Oh.
So that's California history for Californians. For everyone else, you're likely going to have the rough sketch of what happened with the gold rush, but I'm going to give you some really interesting details you haven't heard. So I want you to close your eyes. Close your eyes. October 1st, 1854. 100 drunken sailors crammed into the paddle wheel tug Goliath in the San Francisco Bay.
What would you do with those drunken sailors?
Oh, I'll tell you what we do. We got booze. We got drugs. We got finger foods.
I did not see finger foods being the third one on that list. I was like, go on.
That's like, hello, you're throwing a party. Booze, drugs, finger foods, Party's in full effect. This thing is popping. Just like I said, 100 just inebriated sailors. Why? Why were they on this booze cruise?
I didn't know sailors liked booze cruises. I thought they just did that professionally.
I think their life is a booze cruise.
Yeah, that's
but
what
in
I thought.
particular, this one was just like they're on this like steamer around the San Francisco Bay.
They're just tooling around the San Francisco Bay, drinking,
just tootling,
and carousing, and I don't know why.
Because it was the birthday of one James Kelly. James Kelly, a rough and tumble, ginger-headed Irishman.
Oh, not Jim Kelly, the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills.
No, not time-traveling Jim Kelly.
Okay, I was confused.
No, James Kelly. He owned boarding houses. He owned saloons. Everybody knew who James Kelly was. And all of his stuff was on the Barbary Coast in San Francisco.
Oh, so the North Beach area.
Okay. What is now North Beach, Chinatown-ish, but closer down to the water. Like what is now inland a little bit was actually right on the water.
Oh, okay.
So he just is the man there. He's, got all these businesses and stuff. He says it's his birthday and he wants to celebrate. So he spreads word. He gets 100 sailors on this ship. Sailors.
Now, why does he want to celebrate his birthday with 100 sailors?
Why not?
Seems like,
the thing is, it's
is he into sailors?
Who isn't? He he just spreads word around the saloons and the boarding houses.
Yeah.
Most of them are sailors that are in there.
I'm saying with that, like using that as a tactic to get invites for your party, it just seems like you're not getting the creme de la creme. I'm just saying.
Well, yes, but it was a very particular, very intentional move on his part.
He wanted to get some thirsty people.
Well, you'll see. So he says, we're just going to cruise around the bay, maybe go down south to Alviso, which is now San Jose.
Okay.
And
Sounds better that way.
well, now it's sort of a neighborhood there, but it's like the closest to the bay.
Okay.
And he says, we're just going to cruise around. We're just going to party, man. It's my birthday. Like, let's cut loose. Let's let off a little steam. Loosen your ties, fellas. By the end of the night, those 100 sailors are going to be outside the bay, outside the Golden Gate, which didn't have a bridge at that point, but was still called the Golden Gate, on different ships headed to ports unknown.
Oops.
This was the greatest caper of the most famous crimper.
What's a crimper?
Hold on. James Shanghai Kelly. So
Crimpin ain't easy, James Kelly.
Crimpin ain't easy. So I'm going to take a really quick break.
Okay.
And then I just need to gather myself because I love this story so much. It is running through my body in an electrical manner.
I'm just going to be sitting here thinking about crimping.
And finger foods. And then I'm going to give you the ridiculous backstory on this ridiculous man and his ridiculous crime.
We'll be right back after a break.
Yep. All right, so let's take it back a couple of years. People came from all over the world to make their fortunes and pull gold from the clear, sweet waters of the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains.
Okay.
You know this. The stuff was everywhere.
Oh, yeah, just laying there for you to grab.
You're tripping over big
Boulders
nuggets.
of gold.
Boulders and nuggets. Now, the main port of entry for these prospectors, the 49ers as we called them, because gold found in 1848, 1849 is when people start arriving, is San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they call the team the 49ers.
Oh.
Minor 49ers.
Makes a lot of sense.
They set up in San Francisco. But you know what? Many who set up shop in San Francisco didn't run up to the hills in search of gold.
Wait, they come out to gold country and they're like, I'm not about the gold?
Well, think about it. Anytime you have some sort of boom, there's associative businesses.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, if you want to get rich, sell shovels.
Precisely. So you have these people who show up in San Francisco. They're selling the goods and the supplies to the prospectors, but they're also fulfilling the needs of these associative businesses. There's food, there's laundry, banking, construction.
Levi Strauss, inventing jeans.
Levi Strauss. Yeah, no, legit.
That's legit. Yeah.
And
for the miners.
You know, and you have the like Wells Fargo and all that kind of stuff. You have seamstresses. You have saddle makers. So all these people. And at the same time, it's a really permissive, wild boomtown. And it's the perfect place to offer any vice you can think of. So you have alcohol, you have women, drugs, gambling.
Some of my favorite vices. Go on.
Yeah, just all the good stuff. And the epicenter for all these illicit trades was the Barbary Coast. So you have all these people coming in and just a boomtown. More and more people arriving every single day. And they're coming by boat. So the San Francisco harbor is absolutely just clogged, choked with ships. Because what happens is that the ships, arrive in port, the crew gets off the ship, they unload, and then the crew just takes off. They're either like, you know what, I got to go get some gold, or this place is amazing. The weather's great. There's, as much opium as I can smoke, and I can gamble and be a crazy man. Or, you know what, I really just want to live a normal life and have a job and start a dry goods business, whatever.
Yeah, everybody basically is saying, look, I don't want to be involved in what is basically the standards of the British Navy at sea when I can be living in a libertine palace like San Francisco where everybody's hanging out and doing whatever they want.
Totally.
Easy sell.
Totally. Yeah, you can have a sucky life on a boat or you can come to like this new, as they used to say, the Baghdad on the Bay.
Oh,
one way
I was wondering if it was like the Paris of the West. I like Baghdad on the Bay.
Baghdad on the Bay.
That's funny is they call L.A. the Baghdad in the 20s and San Francisco Baghdad in the 40s, and we still make fun of Baghdad from the standpoint of now.
I know.
Sorry, go
because
on.
it was a really cosmopolitan, incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, until we got there. Anyway, so all these people there, all these ships, and sometimes the captains would bail out too. And so they would just scupper the ship. They just like ditch it on the shore and they'd take off. And a lot of those ships that were abandoned were turned into landfill, which is why the waterfront is further out into the bay today than it was at the time.
They just built on top of the ships?
Yeah, they just like smashed it up and shoved it because it was all marshy, sandy.
Oh, that's right. When they're digging that BART train, they like went through a ship or whatever.
Yeah,
right? Is that
like
true?
the Montgomery Station, I believe, is the one that went straight through a ship. And whenever they do those kind of excavations for construction, they find,
Like I'm sure the Salesforce Tower is built on top of a ship.
Probably, yeah. And the thing is, that's also why in the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, when all the buildings in the Marina District pancaked, it's because the ground liquefied, because it's not really ground.
Huh.
It's landfill and sandy
just
soil.
Aggregate stuff.
Totally. So some of those ships are smashed in and like used as landfills. Some were used as hotels and
like
saloons.
Floating hotels.
Yeah, they will just like shove it onto the ground and then like
they wouldn't even get
cut
on
a
the
door and there's all, hey.
It sounds like Australian housing.
Pre-built. I don't even know what that means, but it's funny.
Right?
So they have all these ships, but then they have the ones that still are seaworthy. And you do have stuff that needs to come back out. You have people who need to go places, mail, raw goods. Some of the gold needs to be then, taken other
completely.
places. So there's a need for a crew, and there are no crews most of the time. I mean, that's like a huge overstatement, but it's really, really hard to staff a ship in those days.
Especially with qualified sailors. I'm sure it's not hard to get a 13-year-old boy, but like...
Totally. Yeah, but you need someone who knows what they're doing, who's got their sea legs. So they have to go and find all these people. They have to get a crew. What do? You got to get these empty ships out of harbor too so that more ships can come in. It's like when you're on an elevator and it's crowded, or like when you're on a subway car and you're trying to get off and everyone's trying to get on. You're like, look, man, if you let me out of this elevator, you let me out of this subway car, then there's room for you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it was in the Bay. Let me get these ships out and then you can get more ships in. Ebb and flow, man.
Yeah. Don't block the flow.
Don't block the flow. So what happens is that they have these deserted ships. Someone's going to fill a need. Enter Shanghai Kelly.
Ooh, we got a nickname.
Got a nickname. That's James Kelly. He's an innkeeper, a publican, and a crimper.
What's a publican?
A pub owner. He's a saloon guy.
I like how you do your shoulders.
He's got wiggly. It's wiggly. He's a crimper.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you wanted to know what a crimper was.
I'm on the edge of my wheelchair.
Crimping. You're legitimately sitting in a wheelchair right now.
I should say that I am not habitually in a wheelchair, but I choose to be in a wheelchair for my desk chair because it's the most comfortable chair.
Yeah.
And I'm on the edge of it right now.
Yeah, you literally are. Crimping. Crimping is Shanghaiing, what we call Shanghaiing.
Of course. I don't know why I didn't put that together.
Well, and it's like sort of the press gang thing with
totally.
the Royal
I know what
Navy.
Shanghaiing is. I just didn't think... Is he the one who gives us...
He's the one who gives us the term to Shanghai, is Shanghai Kelly. But he was a crimper. He participated in crimping. And there was like a 3-stage system to crimping. In order to get there, you've got the captain of a ship who's saying like, hey.
I need warm bodies.
Hey, Shanghai.
What do you got for me?
I need about a dozen guys. And he's like, no problem, guy. So he has his saloons. He has some guys who are living in the boarding houses. He makes it really appealing to come drink in the saloon. Stage 1 was the Miss Pigott Special. She was another crimper at the time, and she developed this cocktail, the Miss Pigott Special. And it was schnapps, beer, and laudanum.
Ooh, wow. So like the consciousness remover.
Totally. The Widowmaker. So you go, you're like, but they don't order it that way. They're not like, give me the Pigott Special.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take a double. I don't want to think about tomorrow.
They're just like, barkeep,
yeah.
get me your finest grog. I don't know. And so or the bartender's like, the mixologist. It's like early mixologist where they have the handlebar mustache. And they're like,
might I interest you in a libation?
I'm going to set fire to this orange peel and burn the
It's infused with
essence.
brandy from the Marnier region.
I say this as someone whose tipple of choice is like Crystal Light.
But I like that you say tipple of choice.
Because I'm also like an 85-year-old woman. So the Miss Pigott special, they give one to the guy. Sometimes the wayward sailor drinks it. Ooh, off he goes. He just collapses. Mm-hmm. Now that's phase one. That's great.
Okay.
If that works. If that doesn't work, if he nails the drink and is like, what else you got? They're like, crap. Okay. They give him a Shanghai smoke.
Shanghai smoke.
Mm-hmm. Specially rolled cigars from a supplier in Chinatown who would lace them with opium. So you've had the Miss Pigott special. You got schnapps. Which schnapps? Are you kidding me?
It's so syrupy.
But then imagine it's like the schnapps of today. So it's like root beer schnapps and a beer. And then a Vicodin. With a Vicodin float.
The Miss Piggy special.
The Miss Piggy special. So the Shanghai smoke, they give him a cigar laced with opium.
Mm-hmm.
They're puffing away on that.
No funny smoke, no wacky tobacco, no actual pot, just laudanum, or I guess opium rather.
Opium, yeah. No, I don't know if they were growing a lot of.
Well, California, I figured the Mexican, definitely, that was a plant of choice at the time, but just,
Maybe they weren't sharing it with the...
Yeah, that's very possible. Maybe they hadn't found the joys of the miracle weed yet.
Of the jazz cabbage.
Jazz cabbage.
So the guys are hitting these Shanghai smokes. Now, some of them, after that, they've got the drink, the Shanghai smoke, and then keel over.
Mm-hmm.
Great. But then you got some of these hard-boiled chaps.
The Irish.
White people. So they've got all this stuff in them, and they've got a high tolerance, and they're just like, oh, I'll have another. They wouldn't have time for that. So Shanghai Kelly has some guys in his employ who then would use a blackjack and hit him over the head.
Ooh.
Thud. Now we're guaranteed.
Hit that off switch.
Right. And so one of his pubs, one of his saloons is the Old Ship Saloon, which still exists.
Really?
In San Francisco.
Huh.
And it's located now a couple blocks from the water, but it used to be right on the water. And Shanghai Kelly had these guys in little rowboats who would come up under, because it was sort of up on stilts, I guess.
Yeah, like on the waterfront, I imagine.
And Shanghai Kelly had trapdoors in the saloon. So he knocks them out, and they're on the trapdoor, and then zoinks, they spring them, and they drop into the waiting rowboat, and then his minions row the sailor out, hoist him up onto the ship, and when the captain has enough guys, then off they go. And they're all set. He's got a
Now, could
crew.
they get like 12 guys in a night?
Oh, easily.
Oh, wow.
Easily. So the captain comes to Shanghai Kelly and says how many he needs, and then he just
makes an order.
Fulfills the order, and then off they go. So they're out cold. By the time they come to in these ships, they're out in the open Pacific Ocean.
Oh, yeah.
And on their way many times to Shanghai. And people called it Shanghai because if you got sent to Shanghai, it was probably about a year before you'd be able to get back. It was such a long journey because when you get there, then you have to bounce around to all these other ports.
Could you imagine being angry for a full year?
Yeah.
Just pissed.
I totally could. I've done it. But yeah, so you're stuck. And, maybe this isn't what you did. And hopefully you're not a greenhorn sailor. What if you're just like a guy who decided to come to get his fortune and didn't head up to the hills?
Oh, yeah. You're some like wastrel third son of an East Coast family who can't even tie his own shoes. Well, now you got to do ropes.
Then you deserve it. So
our classism is showing.
It totally is. So these guys are screwed. They're out on the ocean. But this is how Shanghai Kelly's really making his money. Because, you got some money coming in from the boarding house or the saloon, but the real money is in getting paid in human cargo.
Oh, of course.
So this is a common occurrence. One day, captains of 3 ships come to Shanghai Kelly. And they say, look, we are in a serious bind here, Kells. We got big trouble. We need men.
Big trouble in Little Chinatown.
Big trouble in Little Chinatown. James Shanghai Kelly's like, all right, friends, how many do you need?
They don't call me Shanghai for a reason.
And they say, Cal, we need, we need between us 100 men. 100.
Damn.
So he's like, oh, dude, I don't think I can't knock out 100 guys in one night. There are other crimpers, right? And he could work with them, but he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
But also, that's a tall order.
And as we have noted earlier, crimping ain't easy.
Crimpin ain't easy. It's just not. It's hard out there for a crimp.
It really is.
Yeah. So there's this huge order, and he's thinking like, what do I do? But you know what I like about Shanghai Kelly? He's always got a plan.
Optimistic, that one.
Man with a plan. He's a clever little fella.
Yeah. You don't earn a nickname without that kind of gumption.
Exactly. So I'm going to tell you all about the plan, but first, we need to take a break.
Back after this.
So back to Shanghai Kelly. He's this fixture on the Barbary Coast. He's got saloons, he's got boarding houses, and God damn it, he loves to party.
What a combo.
What a combo. So don't forget, he needs 100 men.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes around and he tells everyone like, hey diddly, it's my birthday. And people are like, that's great.
Way to go.
He's like, no, come on.
Way to not die last year.
Congrats. No one knows if it really was near his birthday.
It wasn't.
I don't think he knew what his birthday was. It was very common, he's like had a ballpark figure of when his birthday would be. He goes around and he tells everyone, it's my birthday. And I am so successful and I love my life. And I want to share my joy. This is a transcript that I found. He's so excited about this, and his enthusiasm is infectious. He says, you guys, I have so much, and it's all thanks to you. All you sailors who stay in my boarding houses and drink in my saloons. I mean, because it's not as if every single time one of these dudes went in the saloon, they got knocked out.
Oh, yeah, no, totally. And I'm imagining they're picking some of these people like, oh, nobody's going to miss Bob.
Exactly. They're glad to see him go through the trap door.
Oh, you're new in town?
That guy would not stop reciting his own poetry. So he gets everyone all riled up. He's like, you know what? I want to party, and I'm going to party my way. I've got this boat that I have access to. It's a paddle wheel steamer. It's called the Goliath. And everyone's like, ooh, the Goliath. He's like, yeah, the Goliath. I am going to stock it so full of alcohol and drugs and food, and we're just going to have a bacchanal on the bay.
And is he bringing out like sex workers too?
I would imagine so. Although, like from the accounts that I've read, it just sounds like it's a dude booze cruise. Sausage party.
Well, but times were different.
Let's just say you probably had a couple ladies on there, because otherwise some of these guys are going to be like, now, hold on a second. Like, what are we going to do? Just bro down on the water? No, it's nothing. I can see that.
There's a reason why fight clubs were popular for a while.
Well, and it's interesting you bring up fight clubs, because James Shanghai Kelly, there was another guy who was a sort of underling of his,
mm-hmm.
who went by the name of Shanghai Chicken.
What? Shanghai Chicken? What's your street name, son? Shanghai Chicken?
Well,
what y'all up to?
And then he had a partner named Orange Chicken. No, I was kidding.
I was going to say, come on now. And his buddy, General Sal.
And they rode the Panda Express. Shanghai Chicken. He was another Irish bloke, another fella, and but they did fight clubs.
I figured, yeah. That bare knuckle brawling is like.
And what was kind of cool about it is that they would put up these little flyers that they were going to have these brawls, but they were illegal, and so they would put up flyers with the wrong location, and people would know that if one location was stated, that it was actually a different one.
Oh, interesting.
Shanghai Kelly was involved in it, and then all these other crimpers, and then just general roustabouts in the Barbary Coast. They had bare knuckle boxing. One time they said it was going to be in Sausalito, which is a Tony, Marin County neighborhood town. Sausalito. And I don't know who would be enforcing this kind of thing, but the fuzz of the day.
Yeah, the sheriff.
Took a boat and rowed themselves out to Sausalito. No fight. They had gone over to Point Isabel.
Oh, the dog park.
The dog park. Fun fact, largest dog park in the United States today. But Point Isabel at the time was just, like a marshy area over in the East Bay. They had their brawl there. And then the papers would report on it in these sort of breathless accounts of how exciting it was that they, beat the snot out of each other. But this happened all the time. So I'm sure that there were, enticements of bare knuckle fights on the boat. And, it's just going to be a free-for-all, complete free-for-all. And everyone's getting really excited. They're so excited for this birthday booze cruise. Word is spreading all over. And he says, all right, I can fit like 100 people on this boat. So come on down. Piles everybody on the ship. They kind of paddle around, they, cruise around a little bit. Everyone's just trashed, completely wasted. And then when he gets to the point where all the sailors on the ship are incapacitated, they head outside the bay, out to the Marin headlands. So just outside the bay, where there are 3 ships waiting. The captains who had come to him earlier, give me some dude. And so they start loading dudes onto the ship.
Now, are they conscious or unconscious at this point?
Unconscious.
So they're just basically throwing bags of men onto boats.
Right. And a lot of times they would strip them nude and wrap them in a blanket. And I don't know why that is.
It's just more fun.
Right? I guess it's more humiliating for them. Like, who's the boss? Like, you wake up and you're stripped naked and you're in like a scratchy blanket and you're like, oh, you know what? You showed me, Captain.
And they didn't have like driver's license and papers they kept on them that identified them, right? I mean, so it wasn't like you needed to separate them from their wallet.
No, I mean, I'm sure they did have a bill folder,
I'm sure.
whatever they had, or I'm sure they had some documents, and they probably wanted to separate them from anything. And then maybe I wouldn't put it past old Shanghai to turn around and sell the clothes.
Oh, of course. He probably actually rented the clothes.
Rented them out. So, so he's dumping all these guys on the boats outside of the San Francisco Bay. And the captains pay him off, and he's got all this money, and he's just like, you know what? I am a genius. I love it when a plan comes together. This was great. And he's high-fiving all the other, assistants of his, and they're just like...
He's high-fiving Shanghai Chicken. We did it, bro.
We did it, chicken. And then they fight it out a little bit, and it's just the testosterone on that boat.
Palpable.
Ugh. So... They have a moment, though, where he's like, hold on a second. Everybody in San Francisco knows about this booze cruise. And I'm about to return to the harbor with an empty boat.
Oops.
That's not a good look.
No. That raises eyebrows and suspicions.
So they're like chewing on their hangnails and looking at each other.
No, everybody got off at Tiburon. I took them across. And...
I was just running a giant ferry service. They loved Alviso down south. So... what do we do? Well, then a boat comes up, heading into the bay. And I'm not sure how this kind of stuff would work if they pull up alongside and exchange pleasantries. That's basically
where are you coming in from?
It's like, hey, what's up, dude?
You happen to have 100 men on boat?
So this passing boat comes and they're like, hey, did you hear? And Shanghai's like, oh, what did I hear? What? They said, a boat ran aground a little further down the coast a bit, and it's taken on water. There's a ton of people.
Oh, my God. His prayers are answered.
Now, this was a common occurrence up and down the coast.
Of course. Yeah, no, it happened. It's a rocky coast.
It can happen. So he's like, full speed ahead, brothers. And they go down the coast, and there's a ship, the Yankee Blade, run aground, taken on water.
No, but he's in a paddle wheel steamship like you would have on the Mississippi River, and he's taking it out into some of the roughest water in the Pacific and then making a left turn.
Yeah.
Love that for him.
Well, if you're Shanghai Kelly, nature works by your rules.
Oh, yeah. You got a pair of bracelets.
You totally do. So he goes down there. He's like, hey, I'm here to save the day. Get on board. And he's, and people, woo, is clapping, and the waterlogged clapping. And now there are some people who dispute this account.
Okay. Those people are not fun.
Sticklers for details. My grandmother always told me, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Your grandma's 100% right.
100%. And I would say that the fact that this story persisted in so many avenues, and then you had like buzzkills later who wanted to point out that maybe the actual shipwreck was further down the coast than was possible for him to reach.
Oh, whatever. Thanks, Twitter.
Right. I'm going to go with the conventional knowledge legend in San Francisco. So he goes down. He's like, everybody, quick, on the boat. I'm here to rescue you.
I am Shanghai Kelly.
Hello. Hey, everybody. I'm Shanghai Kelly. Didn't that sound like him?
It was flawless.
Yeah. So he gets all the people on. Apparently, there was also a bunch of gold bars on the ship.
On the ship that they're rescuing?
On the Yankee Blade.
Okay.
And he lightened that load.
Of course.
And it was never seen again. But the insurance company was told that it went down with the ship.
I wonder if he split it with the captain of the Yankee Blade.
He doesn't split anything.
Yeah.
I think he sent his little dudes, he sent the chicken down and was like, load it up, man. And like 50 years later, there's an article in one of the papers saying, my father was on that boat and there was gold and I'd like to know what became of it. No one cared. They'd
You've
moved
been thinking
on.
about that for 50 years?
Yeah, they'd moved on. So they load everybody up, head back into the bay, pulls into port. People are excited. Now, he kind of does this two ways. He's hailed as a hero for saving all these people. So you have the people flooding off the ship like, oh my God, this guy, Mr. Kelly, this little tiny redheaded little sprite, he saved us. And, the people of San Francisco, oh, he's wonderful. And then there are also the people who kind of notice, oh, the full boat came back. And they're, how was your birthday, James? And he's like, it was great cruise. So people weren't saying, now hold on a second, you saved all these people from a shipwreck. What happened to all of your booze cruisers?
Or there were no women and children when you left. You come back, and now there are women and children on the boat. How long were you gone?
Babies on there. I think that it would probably be more logical that perhaps he had 100 sailors and he came back with 200 from the shipwreck.
So he's acting like the 100 sailors are part of the crowd. Yeah, I figure that.
Yeah. So he's this hero. And everyone's happy except the 100 groggy sailors who are on the choppy waters of the Pacific, headed to Shanghai, clutching their heads and cursing the name of James Shanghai Kelly.
Can you imagine, like, you're a father or a brother, you leave home to go get a drink for the night, and, like, you've got, kids, work, a whole life. You go out to get a drink, you wake up on the way to the Pacific. If you're like a single dad, I would be in a panic. If you are like even a married father who has like kids in the family, you're like, oh God, what am I going to do? I'm going to come back. She's going to be married to my neighbor. I mean, like, I can't imagine how a person, what do you tell yourself that like, okay, a year from now when I get back, hopefully.
I don't think he had a lot of married guys poking around down there. There were so many single men. And a lot of the married they wouldn't go to
units, places like this.
Right. And they were coming over. The people who were families who were living there were coming from foreign lands.
Oh, that's what I was kind of thinking of. The ones who maybe didn't know what they're getting into, and they are married, and they're not the types necessarily to gather in these types of bars, but they just picked the wrong place.
Yeah. I'm sure that happened, but I don't think it happened that often.
Yeah, that'd be like the one guy in the movie.
Well, and the families like my people came over at that time.
Into the San Francisco harbor?
1852.
Oh, wow. At that time.
And they were part of the ones who were paid by the French government to get the hell out of France.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So they had like three classes of people that the French sent over. And they had ads in the paper all the time about how wonderful it was, this life in California, that, gold nuggets fell from the sky into your pockets and that kind of stuff. But it was an expensive trip. And so the French government wanted to get rid of a bunch of people. So like the first phase was like political dissidents and like rogue military people. And then the second phase were criminals and drunks. And then the third were just like really poor rural peasants. And my people were the peasants, although I think some of them fell into category 2.
You know, a little later on, the French, they also sent over sex workers, and they wanted to basically clean up Paris. And this guy came up with a plan to clean up the slums of Paris by taking a bum and a sex worker, handcuffing them together, saying that they were married, putting them on a ship, sending them to America.
Oh.
So they really like this plan of like, let's just, send our...
Send them up. And not only that, but let's make a good impression on the new country. So the French in San Francisco were, not other countries weren't paying their people to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But when you had families that were immigrating over, they kept very much to themselves in these little pockets.
Little colonies, if you will.
Yeah, so the families would stick together, and, then, the drunkards or the dissidents or whatever would kind of do their own thing, and they'd wind up in the Barbary Coast. But the Barbary Coast was very much a no-go zone for most people in San Francisco.
The decent people. But I'm imagining some of the, edges, there are people who don't know these things. Either they're young, they're foreign, they don't.
Well, and then on the other part of my family there was the crooked Irish cop.
Oh.
So he was headed down there all the time.
It was his business.
But that was his business. So you have mostly these just single guys who are, sailors, wanting some adventure, getting a little bit more than they bargained for.
Now, do any of them come back a year later and they're just like, whoa?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then they want to get Shanghai Kelly.
Oh, I bet. I bet they want to get all the Shanghai Kelly.
Do you know what happened to Shanghai Kelly?
No.
He was shanghaied. I'm serious.
Are you serious?
Dead serious.
I love that. Oh, I love a good dramatic irony.
He and his pal got shanghaied and wound up in Peru or something.
Who Shanghai Kelly? Because that dude could take his name too.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're no longer Shanghai Kelly. You got shanghaied. You're now Jim Kelly again. Sorry.
Sorry, Jimmy. And then he wound up getting shot and killed down in Peru. So that was how he ended his illustrious career.
He died in Peru from lead poisoning.
I think it was...
Well, I think
he bled out. Bullet poisoning. Yeah, so he himself was shanghaied in the end. What I like about the Shanghai Kelly story is that it's like a good example that, as with anything that's ridiculous, if you go to the wildest lengths possible, you can get stuff over on people.
That is true. He kind of goes big. I mean, he's like, look, I'm going to tell you a story, but it's so big, you can't question it.
Right. Well, and here's something else I was thinking about, is that we're sort of in this new gold rush in the Bay Area with, we have been with tech and everything. And so...
And our post-truth.
So you have this tech boom, you have millionaires overnight, just like you had in the gold rush. People come from all over the world, just like in the gold rush. So who's our Shanghai Kelly today?
Salesforce?
Zuckerberg?
Is it Zuck?
Is it Zuck? It's probably Zuck. Yeah, that's just something to think about. Who's our Shanghai Kelly? Who's the one who's taking care of the back end, the dirty underbelly of this all?
Elon Musk. No? I feel like I'm getting closer.
I don't have an answer, but I just don't want the answer to be Elon Musk. I don't know.
He's not cool enough to get a nickname, so I don't know if he qualifies for the whole Shanghai Kelly.
No. Muskox.
No, he's like...
No, he doesn't get anything cool. No, it's something to ponder.
Yeah, it really is.
Who is our Shanghai Kelly?
Also, it's interesting about how historically, when there is a boom, there is always a dark side of the boom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't have it otherwise. And people are going to take advantage. There's all that money floating around and all
the optimism and the dreamers and the people coming in constantly. So you have this high overturn. It's a lot like Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the story of Shanghai Kelly. Nice and ridiculous. Thank you for listening to me tell you that story.
Thank you for telling me that story.
So welcome. For more ridiculousness, you can find us online at Ridiculous Crime on both Twitter and Instagram. That's at Ridiculous Crime is the handle. If you have a tip for us on some ridiculous crime, if you heard something that is just wild and you think we need to tell each other about it, you can email us at ridiculouscrime@gmail.com. And that's how you want to get in touch. Please do.
Reach out and get ridiculous with us.
That's right. Ridiculous Crime is hosted by Elizabeth Dutton and Zaron Burnett. Produced and edited by crimp walker Dave Kustin. Research is by the unsinkable Marissa Brown. The theme song is by wacky cigar roller Thomas Lee and suspicious barkeep Travis Dutton. Executive producers are Captain Ben Bolin and First Mate Noel Brown.
Ridiculous Crime is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.